The day my uncle laughed in my face at my father's funeral. Not a polite chuckle, not an awkward, nervous laugh. A full, teeth-showing, head-tilting laugh right there next to the casserole table while people were still crying in the next room. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Your dad was the smart one in the family. Too bad none of that rubbed off on you." I was 29. I had just used every single dollar of my savings, $47,000, to buy a rundown gas station on the edge of town that everyone thought was a joke. My family had opinions about that, loud ones. But let me back up. My dad was a quiet man, worked a logistics job his whole life, never complained, never showed off. When he passed, he left behind a modest house, some savings, and a will that split everything equally between me and my uncle Tariq, his younger brother, who had basically lived off my dad's goodwill for 15 years. Here's what nobody knew except my dad and his lawyer. 3 months before he died, Dad had quietly pulled his share out of a joint property he co-owned with Tariq. He saw something coming. He didn't tell me what, just pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Son, don't trust a man just because he shares your last name." I didn't fully understand what he meant until the will reading. Tariq got the house. I got a lump sum cash payout fair market value of Dad's half of that property. Already liquidated. Clean, simple, no entanglement. Tariq was furious. He had apparently been banking on inheriting the whole house outright and using it as collateral for some business scheme he'd been cooking up. When the lawyer read the numbers out loud, I watched Tariq's face go from smug to stone cold in about 2 seconds flat. Then he looked at me like it was my fault. The family politics that followed were brutal. Aunties calling me to be reasonable. Cousins texting me to just give Tariq a little extra to smooth things over. My own mother, God bless her, told me that holding on to money causes family rifts. I held on to the money. What I did with it, though, that's where everyone decided I'd completely lost my mind. I bought a gas station, not a shiny new franchise. A tired, flickering sign, cracked forecourt, 1-bathroom gas station on a state highway about 12 miles outside town. The previous owner was retiring and desperate to sell. I got it for $47,000, basically everything I had after the inheritance cleared. My family's reaction was not supportive. Tariq called it poverty cosplay. My cousin posted a laughing emoji under a photo I shared. Someone's wife said I had wasted my father's legacy. My uncle sat across from me at a family dinner 3 weeks after I signed the papers and said, "And I will never forget this, your father worked his whole life so you could buy a petrol pump?" He'd be embarrassed. I didn't argue, I just nodded, finished my food, and went home to clean the bathroom at my gas station at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Here's the thing nobody knew about that gas station. I hadn't bought it on a whim. I'd been researching that exact location for 8 months. There was a major highway expansion project in the planning stages, a new bypass route that would redirect thousands of vehicles per day directly past that exit. The state transportation website had it buried in a PDF that nobody bothered to read. I'd read it 4 times. I also knew that the nearest fuel stop on that new route would be 19 miles in either direction once the expansion completed. I was going to be the only station within a 20-mile corridor. I didn't tell anyone this. Not my mom, not my friends, nobody. Partly because I'd learned from Tariq's behavior that loose lips around money is how you end up getting squeezed. And partly, I'll be honest, partly because I wanted to watch their faces when it happened. The first year was genuinely rough. I was working 14-hour days, learning plumbing repairs on YouTube, running the register myself, eating gas station hot dogs for dinner more nights than I'll admit. I lost weight. I looked terrible. Every family gathering I showed up to, someone found a way to slide in a comment about how I was still at the petrol pump. I smiled every time. Let them talk. The highway expansion was announced publicly in month 16. I remember sitting in my tiny back office, watching the news clip on my phone, and just exhaling. Like I'd been holding my breath for a year and a half. Within a week, I had 2 franchise representatives call me about branding partnerships. Within a month, I had a commercial contractor in to redesign the forecourt. I added a proper convenience store section, upgraded the pumps, put in a drive-through coffee window small, nothing fancy, but clean and fast. The daily revenue in year 1 averaged around $800. By month 20 after the bypass opened, I was doing $4,200 a day. Let me just let that number sit there for a second. Now, here's where Tariq comes back into the story. Because, of course he does. Tariq's business scheme, the one he'd been planning to fund with the house, had gone sideways. Badly, he'd borrowed against the property anyway, over-leveraged himself, and when his venture collapsed. He was suddenly sitting on debt with a house he couldn't afford to keep. He quietly put it up for sale. He needed a buyer fast. A mutual cousin called me and said Tariq had been asking around about whether I'd be interested in buying it as a family gesture. He wanted full market price, which at that point was around $310,000, and he wanted a quick close because the bank was getting impatient. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I told the cousin I'd think about it. What I did instead was contact a property investment firm I'd been introduced to through one of my franchise reps. I explained the situation. They looked at the house, they looked at the area, and they made Tariq an offer of $271,000 below asking. All cash, fast close. Here's the part that matters. They were buying on my behalf. As a silent investor. Tariq had no idea. He took the deal. He needed the money too badly to push back. I now own the house my grandfather built, the house my father grew up in. The house Tariq spent 15 years treating like his personal inheritance. I found out that he found out at another family dinner because, of course, that's where all the drama in this family happens. Someone let it slip. I honestly think my cousin did it on purpose because she'd never liked Tariq either. He went pale. Then he looked across the table at me and he started to say something. And I looked back at him completely calm, picked up my glass, and took a sip. He left early. He hasn't spoken to me directly since. That was 14 months ago. My mom lives in that house now, rent-free. She cried when I handed her the keys. She also apologized, quietly, for the stuff she'd said during the petrol pump years. I told her not to worry about it. I meant it. The gas station is now worth conservatively somewhere between $1.1 and $1. $4 million in current valuation. I have 2 employees, a manager, and enough free time to actually sleep 8 hours a night, which honestly still feels illegal. Tariq is renting a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of the city. I hear he's doing okay. I don't wish him badly. I really don't. But I'd be lying if I said I don't still think about that laugh at my father's funeral sometimes. I think about it, and then I think about my mom making tea in her kitchen, in her house, without a single bill to worry about. And I feel fine.